Hi, this is Krista Stefani. The information contained in this training module will relate and provide guidance to the Productivity and Transportation tab of the cost survey that is being conducted by the State of Nebraska Department of Health and Human Services for the Aged and Disabled Waiver and Pass services. The information being requested on this schedule relates to productivity time for your direct support staff, supervision of the direct support staff, training requirements for the direct support staff, paid time off that the staff may incur, and then also provides additional information related to transportation services that are included in the waiver definitions. So the first part of this schedule asks you to complete information about productivity, time in an average work week for your direct support professionals. So on average, we want to start out with what is the average total hours worked in a week? In this example, for our assisted living staff, one direct support professional works on average 40 hours a week. Then we're asking you to indicate if that direct support professional's duties include transporting individuals or incurring travel time between serving individuals. So for example, for assisted living, that probably isn't the case, but for some other services, maybe as personal care or chore or homemaker, there might be quite a bit of individual travel time to get from one service location to another. Next, we'll indicate the record keeping and office time that is related to providing the service. And then the employer time, such as receiving one-on-one supervision, attending staff meetings, etc. Now, it's important that we distinguish that the services that you are providing information on in lines 2 through 7 are what we consider generally not billable or not directly working with an individual, but it is work that is required for that direct support professional to provide a positive experience for the individuals. What we want to capture here is that time that is not necessarily spent working one-on-one with the individuals, but rather doing other duties that support that individual's service needs, so that we can use that information in evaluating rates for each of these services. Next is information being requested related to on-site supervision of the direct care staff. So what we mean by this is you have direct care supervisors who are required and who spend time actually monitoring and observing the direct hands-on services in real time that are being provided by the direct support professionals to the individuals. So you can indicate if yes or no, does your agency provide this on-site supervision for staff? If yes, how many direct care workers are supervised by one supervisor? So what is that supervisor's span of control? Are they responsible for supervising 4 direct support professionals, maybe 8, maybe fewer or more? Please indicate that on this line. And then if yes to number 1, then please provide the average number of hours of on-site supervision provided per staff during a typical week. So for example, if your direct on-site supervision requires that supervisor to monitor the direct support professional for a half hour a day or a half hour a week, then you would enter 0.5 hours of on-site supervision. Next, we want to capture information related to required training hours for the direct support employees. So we separate this into 2 categories because generally in the first year, there is more training time that's incurred that's not necessarily billable for the service, but is required for that direct support professional to be able to provide services. So we're asking for the first year of employment, how many hours of training does an employee are they required to attend including any time they spend job shadowing. And then say they're employed for more than 1 year. In subsequent years, what is the training requirements? Do they only need to attend 8 hours of training a year in order to keep providing direct services? That's why we're asking for that information here, because it's not necessarily billable, but should be included when we evaluate rates to pay for these services. The next section is asking you to provide information related to paid time off for your direct support professionals. As we all know, everybody needs to have time away from their job. But in the service world, not only are you paying for a direct support professional to be away from the job, but you have to find somebody to replace them. And therefore, there's an extra expense incurred to cover shifts for individuals when they're away on vacation, sick, or holiday. So what we are asking you to populate here is, on average, what are the number of vacation, sick, and paid holidays based on an 8-hour equivalent day that you provide for your direct support professionals? The next section, we'd like to collect information on the direct support professional employee turnover. We realize, especially in today's economy, it's hard to attract workers, let alone retain them. So we want to get an idea of how much turnover is happening within the industry. And to give us an idea of what is happening, please provide us with the number of your direct support professional staff at the beginning of the year, the number of direct support professional staff at the end of the year, and we'll calculate an average number of staff. Then please indicate the number of direct support professional staff terminations, whether they were voluntary or involuntary during the year. And that will help us calculate an estimated turnover rate for your direct support professional staff. We know that there's a lot that goes into training direct support professionals, as mentioned above, and there are other expenses incurred related to attracting, interviewing, retaining the direct support professionals, and having this information will help us to evaluate rates. And the last bit of information we are requesting on this tab is for you to identify information related to transportation expenses. So on the expense tab, we'll be asking information on lines 16 through 18 for expenses related to company vehicle expense, public transportation, and mileage expense. So of the total expenses reported on those 3 lines, please indicate what percentage of that total expense relates to each of these services. Then we are asking you to provide information on the total number of trips that are provided for each program. So let's say for your assisted living, you provided 100 trips. Of those 100 trips, what percentage of those trips were provided in company vehicles versus in vehicles owned by employees? After that, there are a set of questions that are related solely to assisted living, and that's because within the waiver definition, assisted living providers are required to provide a certain number of medical trips per year. So please indicate the number of medical trips that you have per year for individuals, so the combined total. What percent of those medical trips exceeded 50 miles? What percent of those medical trips exceeded 5 per month per individual? And then indicate the total number of non-medical trips. We thank you for taking time to complete this cost survey and for also taking time to view these training modules.